34 years old, Andre Gibson made a respectable living, pulling in a salary of $250,000 a year as a senior logistics manager for a national shipping conglomerate. He was good at his job, meticulously planning the movement of millions of dollars in goods across the country. He understood supply chains, inventory management, and the critical importance of a balanced ledger. He believed in systems, in order, and in the quiet integrity of a promise kept. What he did not understand, not yet, was that the same principles he applied to his work could be weaponized against him in his own home. He stood on the manicured brick sidewalk of a high-end shopping center in Ponte Vedra, Florida, feeling the humid evening air cling to his skin. The sky was a bruised purple, the sun having just dipped below the horizon. In front of him, glowing with an almost celestial warmth, was the grand opening of Vasquez and Company, a boutique so chic and exclusive it seemed to hum with the silent frequency of wealth. This was his wife's family's dream, realized. Miriam, his wife of 5 years, her father Ricardo, her mother Elena, and her brother Mateo. They were all inside, bathed in the soft, expensive light, clinking champagne flutes that probably cost more than his weekly grocery bill. Andre had put on his best suit for the occasion, a simple but well-tailored navy wool suit from Brooks Brothers that had cost him a considered $600. He felt a swell of pride for them, for Miriam. He had supported this venture, believing he was a part of it. He had, after all, helped fund it. Or so he thought. He took a step toward the gleaming glass door, ready to join the celebration, to share in the culmination of what he believed was a shared effort. But Miriam appeared at the entrance, a vision in a shimmering, emerald green dress that must have been custom-made. It was a masterpiece of silk and confidence, a dress he now realized he had paid for, though he hadn't known it at the time. Her dark hair was swept up in an elegant arrangement of twists and coils, looking regal and untouchable. She blocked his path, her smile not quite reaching her eyes. Behind her, he could see Ricardo, resplendent in an $8,700 Armani suit, his arm around his wife Elena, who was draped in pearls. Mateo stood nearby, smirking, wearing a watch that Andre knew for a fact was a Rolex Submariner, a $15,000 piece of celebratory hardware. "Andre," Miriam said, her voice low and smooth, but with an edge of finality he had never heard before. "I'm glad you came to see it." "It's incredible, Miri," he said, his own smile genuine. "I'm so proud of you. Of all of you." He made to step past her, but she put a perfectly manicured hand on his chest, stopping him. The gesture was gentle, but the force behind it was immovable. "Thank you for coming," she said again, as if he were any other guest. "But the family is about to do the ribbon cutting. We need to have a private moment." Andre frowned, confused. "Private? Miri, I'm your husband. I'm family." Her smile tightened, becoming a thin, sharp line. She glanced over her shoulder at her father, who gave her a slight, almost imperceptible nod. When her eyes returned to Andre's, they were cold, devoid of the warmth he had known for 5 years. "No, Andre," she said, her voice dropping to a whisper that cut him more deeply than any shout could have. "This is a Vasquez family moment. You've never been family." The words hung in the air between them, stark and brutal. He felt the blood drain from his face. He looked past her, into the bright, laughing world of the boutique, a world built with his money, his trust, his labor. And he was being locked out. The humiliation was sharp and public. A few people in the gathering crowd were close enough to hear, their curious glances turning into pitying stares. He was the husband, the provider, the man who went to work every day, and he was being told he didn't belong. He was an outsider, a tool that had served its purpose. Miriam didn't wait for a response. She simply turned her back on him, the emerald green silk of her dress whispering as she disappeared back into the light, leaving him alone on the sidewalk in the gathering dark. Have you ever given your all to someone, only to find out you were just a means to an end? It's a pain that goes deeper than just money. Let me know in the comments if you've ever felt that kind of betrayal. We're going to walk through every step of how Andre took back his power, and trust me, you won't want to miss how this ends. Their life together, before that moment, had been a carefully constructed facade of domestic normalcy. They lived in a pleasant 2-bedroom apartment on Riverside Avenue in Jacksonville, a space filled with mid-century modern furniture they'd picked out together and framed prints of abstract art. It wasn't a mansion, but it was home. The rent was $2,200 a month, a comfortable expense on Andre's salary. He drove a 2018 Honda Accord, a reliable sedan with over 80,000 miles on it, paid in full. It was a practical car for a practical man. His philosophy was simple: work hard, save diligently, and build a secure future. He contributed the maximum to his 401k and maintained a separate savings account that, until recently, had held a healthy 6-figure balance, the fruit of years of bonuses and disciplined living. Miriam was different. She appreciated the finer things, a trait she inherited from her family, who always seemed to live just slightly beyond their means, chasing an image of old money prestige they didn't quite possess. Andre, in his love for her, had indulged it. He saw it as making her happy. When she'd wanted the white BMW 3 Series, a $43,000 car, he'd co-signed the loan and made sure the $650 monthly payment was always covered from their joint account. He never questioned the $1,200 Gucci handbag she bought for her mother's birthday or the succession of $900 Christian Louboutin shoes that filled her side of the closet. He saw these as expenditures on their shared life, investments in her happiness. He had no idea they were just rehearsals for a much grander deception. The idea for the store had been introduced over a casual Sunday dinner 6 months ago. It was Ricardo's grand vision. Pontevedra is begging for a truly high-end retail experience, he'd announced, swirling a glass of $80 Cabernet. Not the usual department store junk. Curated fashion, Italian leather, French design, Vasquez and company. It sounded ambitious, exciting even. Andre, ever the logistician, saw the potential pitfalls, high overhead, competitive market, but he also saw the fire in Miriam's eyes. This was her family's dream. The requests for money started 2 weeks later. It was a Tuesday evening. Andre was on his laptop finalizing a complex shipping schedule for a new client when Miriam sat beside him on their comfortable $3,000 crate and barrel sofa. She rested her head on his shoulder. "Andre, baby," she began, her voice soft and persuasive. "Papa is placing the first big inventory order. We have a chance to get an exclusive line of handbags from a small Milanese designer. But we have to pay up front." "Okay," Andre said, his focus still half on the screen. "Does he have the capital?" "Almost," she said. "We're just a little short until the initial business loan clears. We were wondering, could we lend the business a little? Just a short-term advance? Maybe $6,000? It's just until the first shipment sells. It would come right back to us in a few weeks." A loan. An advance. The words were specific. Professional. It sounded like a standard business practice. He loved Miriam, and he wanted to support her family. "Of course," he said, closing his laptop. $6,000 is fine. We can handle that." "Thank you, baby," she breathed, kissing his cheek. "You're the best. I'll just do the transfer now so Papa can lock in the order. I'll label it inventory advance so we can track it." He thought nothing more of it. He watched as she did the transfer on her phone, and later, when he glanced at their joint account, he saw it. A withdrawal for $6,000 with the memo inventory advance. It looked official, temporary. He felt a small sense of pride, of partnership. He was helping build something. That Friday, his bi-weekly paycheck of just over $9,600 direct deposited, as it always did. The following week, the pattern repeated. This time it was Mateo, who supposedly needed the help. Mateo found an amazing deal on some cashmere sweaters, Miriam explained over the phone while Andre was at work. The supplier wants $5,500 by tomorrow. Can we do another little advance? Andre hesitated for a fraction of a second. Another one? Already? It's just how the fashion world works, honey, she said, her tone light and breezy. You have to move fast. It'll all be paid back in a lump sum once the store opens and the revenue starts flowing, I promise. He was in the middle of a stressful negotiation for warehouse space. He was distracted. He trusted his wife. Okay, Miri, if you think it's right. And so it went. 14 Fridays. For 3.5 months, the cycle became a quiet, unquestioned part of their financial life. A text on a Wednesday, a brief phone call on a Thursday. The French shoe order came in early. We need to put a deposit on the custom lighting fixtures. The amounts varied. $7,200 one week, $6,500 the next, sometimes as high as $8,000. Each time Miriam was ready with a plausible, urgent-sounding reason. Each time she would perform the transfer herself, meticulously labeling each one inventory advance. Andre was consumed by a massive project at work, the launch of a new, fully automated distribution center in South Georgia. It was the biggest project of his career, demanding 16-hour days and his complete mental focus. The domestic finances, which Miriam had always managed with his oversight, faded into the background. He saw his paycheck land every other Friday, and he trusted that their savings were growing, minus these small, temporary loans that would soon be repaid. He envisioned a day in the near future when Ricardo would hand him a check for the full amount, a proud and grateful father-in-law thanking him for his faith. He had no idea how wrong he was. He was not a partner. He was the revenue stream. The betrayal wasn't a singular event. It was a slow, creeping conspiracy, a series of secret conversations and shared glances that accumulated over 14 weeks. While Andre worked tirelessly, believing he was building a future with his wife, the Vasquez family was celebrating his gullibility. Their family dinners, from which Andre was increasingly excluded, became strategy sessions for the systematic draining of his savings. The first of these secret gatherings took place at Ricardo and Elena's sprawling mortgage-to-the-hilt home in a gated community. They sat around a massive mahogany dining table that had cost $12,000, eating steak and drinking wine Andre's money had indirectly paid for. Is he still sending it? Ricardo asked, not even bothering to use Andre's name. He referred to his son-in-law as if he were a faceless ATM. Miriam took a delicate sip of her wine. I just transferred another $7,000 this afternoon, she said, a note of pride in her voice. He's so busy with that new warehouse project, he doesn't even have time to look at the bank statements. He just trusts me. Mateo, her slick, indolent brother, let out a low laugh. Good old Andre, the workhorse. He just keeps his head down and prints money for us. Mateo had never held a job for more than 6 months, but he had an uncanny talent for spending other people's money. He wore a $1,200 Tom Ford shirt, a gift from Miriam. It's not just for us, it's for the family, Elena, their mother, interjected. She was a woman who wrapped her avarice in a cloak of maternal concern. She wrung her hands, her rings sparkling. Miri, are you sure this is wise? What happens when he finds out? A man's pride. Miriam waved a dismissive hand, the gesture sharp and impatient. Mama, please. What's he going to do? He loves me. He'd do anything for me. And besides, she added, her voice taking on a righteous tone, the lawyers said that in Florida, anything in a joint account is marital property. It's our money. What's his is mine, and what's mine is for the family. This was a piece of advice she'd gotten from a cut-rate attorney, a distortion of the law she clung to like a holy scripture. It gave her permission. They talked for hours about the store, not about the business plan or sales projections, but about the aesthetics, the luxurious appointments that would make the Ponte Vedra elite feel at home. They spoke of the custom-built mahogany shelving, a $15,000 expense. They debated the merits of Italian marble versus Brazilian quartzite for the main cash wrap counter, a staggering $22,000 decision. Every opulent detail was discussed, planned, and ultimately funded by the man they were actively deceiving. Andre's hard-earned money wasn't just inventory advance. It was being transmuted into marble, mahogany, and a mountain of lies. A few weeks later, Andre tried to breach the wall that was slowly being built around him. He and Miriam were having a rare, quiet evening at home. He'd cooked dinner, his simple but delicious shrimp scampi. He was trying to reconnect. "Tomiri," he said, as they sat at their small dining table, "I was running some numbers. With the bonus I'm expecting from the Georgia project, we'll have enough for a serious down payment on a house by next spring." He was excited, his face open and hopeful. A real house with a yard? Maybe in San Marco. Something with some character. Miriam smiled, but it was the same placating smile she used when a salesperson was being too pushy. "That's wonderful, honey. A house would be amazing." She reached across the table and squeezed his hand. "But let's just focus on getting the store off the ground first. This is our future, Andre. It's the foundation for everything else. Once the business is profitable, we can buy any house we want. This store is your future, too." It was a masterful lie, dangling a shared future she had no intention of including him in. She made him feel as if his patience was an investment in their collective dream. In reality, his dream of a house with a yard was being liquidated transfer by transfer to pay for her family's vanity project. He felt a pang of disappointment but pushed it down. She was right, he thought. Support the family business first. The house can wait. He had no idea he was being asked to sacrifice his dream for a fantasy that had no room for him. The cruelty escalated with each transfer. Miriam grew bolder, more contemptuous. She started to see Andre not as her husband, but as a resource to be managed. She'd call him at work, her voice a mix of manufactured stress and affection. "Andre, darling, disaster. The lighting designer needs the deposit for the fixtures by 5 p.m. It's $9,000, can you believe it? But they are absolutely perfect. Can we, you know?" He was in a meeting with engineers and contractors, juggling a dozen critical tasks. $9,000? Miri, that's a lot. I know, she'd sigh dramatically. "But Papa says it's the centerpiece of the whole store. It's an investment. Please, baby." For me, tired, overwhelmed, and wanting to be the supportive husband, he would always relent. "Okay, Miri, go ahead." He was making a multi-million-dollar logistics center a reality, yet he was powerless against a well-timed, manipulative phone call from his own wife. The final betrayal, the 14th transfer, was the coldest of all. It was a Friday morning, the day before the grand opening. Andre was in the shower, the sound of the water masking the quiet clicks of Miriam's phone. She was sitting on the edge of their bed, and coolly transferring the last large sum from their savings. $7,500. She watched the confirmation screen flash on her phone. Balance transferred. A small, triumphant smile touched her lips. The total was now an astonishing $94,000. She had done it. She immediately opened her family's group chat, a chat Andre was not a part of. She typed a quick message. Final draw. We're fully funded. See you all at the opening tomorrow. She hit send without a moment's hesitation. She stood up, stretched, and walked to the closet to pick out her dress for the party. The man in the shower, the man who had worked for every single dollar she had just taken, was not a factor in her celebration. He was not a partner to be thanked. He was a problem that would soon be discarded. She had made a critical mistake, however. She believed his quiet nature was a sign of weakness. She believed his trust was a symptom of ignorance. She had no idea what was coming. Saturday, the day of the grand opening, dawned bright and humid. The air was thick with the promise of afternoon rain. At 9:15 a.m., in their apartment on Riverside Avenue, Andre stood before the full-length mirror on their closet door. He was adjusting the knot of his tie, a simple silk one that matched his navy suit. He was genuinely excited. Despite the nagging feeling of